Greetings, Pirate family. Welcome and thank you for joining us virtually for the Junior College Night. Senior year will be here before you know it, and your page counselors want to help you get ready through this process. We will go through important information and ways you can prepare now for senior year and your college applications. So to start, we want to give a rundown of all of our counselors here at Page High School. We'll start with Ms. Sims. Ms. Sims, she works with the last names A through CO, and provided is her email address beside her name. Also, we have Ms. Erin Huber. She works with the last name CP through GO. We also have Ms. Carolyn McCauley. She works with the last names GP through JO. Also, we have Mr. Freeman. He works with the last names JP through ME. We have Ms. Tremia Bernard, who works with the last names MF through PR. Also, Ms. Laza Palazzi, she works with the last names PS through TE. And last, we have myself, Mr. Ryan Ebron. I'm working with the last names TF through Z. If you would like to book an appointment, please do so. We have the link provided at the bottom of the screen.
Hey everybody, I'm Mr. Freeman, and again, I work with students' last names JP through ME. This is a screen of our administrators we have here at Page. You can see the picture of them right there. We have Mr. Nagley, who's our principal. We have Dr. Mudawali, who works with students' last names beginning with A through E. We have Mr. Motley, who works with students' last names beginning with F through L. We have Ms. Hudson, who works with students' last names beginning with M through R. And we have Mr. Carter, who works with students' last names beginning with S through Z. Each student is able to talk to any of these administrators. Just because your last name does not begin with the letters that these assistant principals work with does not mean anything. All of them work together, so please feel free to reach out to them for any information you may need. We also have our support personnel that we'd like to introduce as well. We have Ms. Yancey, who's our career and college manager and GAP program contact. We have Ms. Hackney, who is our AP and IB coordinator, and Mr. Brown, who's our school social worker. Please make sure you're visiting the Junior Announcements page under the Counseling Department, which is found on the Page website. Through this page, you'll get various pieces of information about scholarships and colleges if this is something that you're choosing to do outside of high school. Also, students should join Remind for announcements about college visits, scholarships, summer programs, etc. If you're not already receiving these, please go ahead and make sure that you text at Page HS22 to the number 81010. Various pieces of information to share through this, so make sure you're a part of this. And hopefully this is just a review for many of you, but if you're not sure, we're going to give you a quick rundown. These are the requirements you need for graduation, and you can see all the courses and the credits that you need. For English, you would need to have 4 credits earned. You would need to have 4 credits of math earned, 3 credits of science, 4 credits of social studies. You need 1 credit of health and PE. You also need 6 credits in electives. This is including 2 years of the same foreign language. If you're choosing to go to college outside of high school, you need to be CPR certified, and all this together will equal 22 credits.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. I'm Ms. McCauley. Like Mr. Ebron said, I work with students' last names GP through JO, and we are so excited to talk with you guys today. So something that we get a lot of questions about is scholarships. So these are scholarships only for juniors. These are things that you need to register for this year in order to be eligible. One of them is called Raise Me, and this allows you to earn scholarships to a number of colleges just by adding in achievements you've done throughout high school. Your counselors can verify that, and I've just put a little, oops, it's not popping up, but there's an example. If you go to that website, you can see the different information there. College Board Opportunity Scholarships are another great way to get a chance at scholarships by preparing for college. And the SAT, it allows you to have register for different areas, and then you're entered to win different scholarships. But go ahead and join both of these this year to be eligible. So preparing for senior year and beyond, your junior year grades are extremely important. These are the last final grades that the college will see before they see your mid-year semester senior year grades. So go ahead and get involved. What are you involved in? Extracurricular activities, work, community service? Go ahead and check your college course requirements. Some colleges require chemistry instead of taking physical science or something like that. Also, some South Carolina schools also require an arts elective. So just take a look at different colleges and what their course requirements are. Some require 3 or 4 years of a foreign language when we only require 2 for graduation and to attend a 4-year school. Also, just some things to note: public North Carolina school requirements, 2.5 weighted GPA, a 17 on the ACT, or an 880 on the SAT. Private schools typically require a 2.0 GPA or higher, but they can be a little bit more flexible, and community colleges are a great option. There's no minimum requirements besides a high school diploma. And lastly, when you get ready to apply to college, deadlines do matter. They're very important. It's important to go ahead and get those marked on your calendar and abide by those. To request your transcript, you're going to visit scriborder.com. Counselors are not able to email your transcripts to different scholarships or colleges, so you're going to want to go ahead and request those. They are free for current students. We are planning another senior parent night in August, and Ms. Huber does a great job with our senior bulletins. Those will be posted on the counseling department website as well as in your English classes, and those have so much information. You definitely want to pay attention to those when they come out, and make sure that you get those, make sure you read through those. Last few things, we have some workshops, how to apply and financial aid, usually are in September. We are going to be having a lot of colleges visiting Page. This year they've been virtual, so next year we'll see kind of what that looks like, whether they're virtual or in person, but we do require that you sign up online. Go ahead and visit the Page website, then click departments, counseling, and then college visit signups. Lastly, we have senior opportunity days, which we'll talk more about next year as options for you to go out and visit colleges and things like that. And lastly, we have gotten the official dates for College Application Week, October 18th through October 22nd. And this is through CFNC. Many North Carolina schools opt in to allow students to apply for free during this week. It begins on Monday the 18th and ends on Friday at 5 p.m. That is a hard deadline. So make sure you don't procrastinate. Start looking at the colleges that they are offering free application week, and start marking your calendars for that exciting time.
Hey everyone, I'm Miss Huber. I work with last names CP through GO. So let's talk about what colleges are looking for when you apply to them. I know this is kind of the big thing that's on everyone's mind, especially with all the changes that have happened in the pandemic. One of the things that's really come up is essays. These are even more important now than in previous years. Because colleges are struggling a little bit with evaluating grades, even test scores, because so many schools have done so many different things during these past few years to try to work with students. So essays are definitely weighted more heavily than they might have been in the past. That being said, don't skip optional essays and don't skimp on your responses. So please, if the college asks for up to 500 words. If you just put 50 words or 100 words, it's going to look to the college like you're not putting a lot of effort into their application. And the reason we say don't skip optional essays, granted, there are some that you might skip just because they simply don't apply to you. But if it's overall just an optional question, I wouldn't skip that, because every now and then that can be used for scholarship consideration. Recommendations. They're going to be looking for teacher and counselor recommendations. If you're applying to any school that's on Common App, a counselor recommendation is required. Not all schools require or even want teacher recommendations, but most require at least one, some two. Some do have the option of you adding a recommender that isn't a teacher, maybe a coach, maybe someone you volunteer with. But not every school takes that. So something to really start thinking about who you may ask for a recommendation. And please be aware that any recommender is probably going to want a copy of your resume. Activities. I know this is kind of a weird thing for a lot of people because a lot of activities were put on hold, but they are looking to see what you're involved in, how passionate you seem to be about it. Do you go above and beyond to make things happen? Do you have a leadership position? They're going to ask you all these questions that really try to get a feel for how involved you are in the activity. And yes, it has been hard to be involved with things in the past year, but they are going to be looking to see what have you done with your time in the past year. So if you weren't doing other activities, were you really focusing on a hobby? Were you putting more effort into your academics? Did you get a job? Those are the kind of things they're going to be looking for in your applications. Transcripts, when they look at your transcripts, because every college will, they're going to be looking to see, were you consistent with your grades throughout high school, or did you have an upward trend throughout the years? You know, maybe you weren't so academic freshman year, but as you started to realize what you wanted to do for a career, maybe your grades got better. Are you taking rigorous courses and challenging yourself? So if you're making all A's in all honors classes, did you then sign up to try a few AP or IB classes? That's something that is important to them. If your grades went down last year, or I guess this year, just be prepared to maybe explain if there was something going on that caused those grades to go downward, because that would be important for the college to know. Interviews. Some schools will ask for interviews. Usually that's an optional thing, but sometimes it's part of scholarship consideration. Generally speaking, if it's an option, I would do the interview. The main thing with interviews is to treat it like a getting to know you conversation. Expressed interest or demonstrated interest. You'll hear colleges talk about this a lot. Mostly what they mean by this is, have you shown interest in the college? Are you visiting campus, signing up for virtual tours? Are you emailing with questions? That's something that every college tracks. They don't always take it into consideration with admissions. Actually, a lot of times they'll say that they don't take it into consideration, but it is something that they all can see when they look at their admission systems. They'll also look to see, are you doing the application yourself? So what I mean by that is, if it's your mom always calling the college and emailing them, they're going to start to wonder who's doing the application. And college admissions people, they really, really want the student to be the one filling out the application. Timeliness. Deadlines are super important. I know y'all have gotten used to flexible deadlines the past year, but colleges pretty much stick to their deadlines. And what I mean by that is not just, did you get it in on the 15th? Did you get it in by 11:59 p.m. on the 15th? If it comes in at 12:01 a.m. the next day, they may not take it, or they may roll you over to the next deadline. So please, I recommend, I see a lot of times students waiting until the deadline to submit something. I don't recommend that with colleges. I can't tell you how many years we've had weather events on deadlines that have caused power to go out, that have caused system crashes. I really, really recommend trying to get things in even a week in advance if you can, just to be on the safe side. Then, of course, they look at GPA, class rank, test scores. I know there's a number of schools that are optional for test scores. Basically, I would look, if you're trying to decide if you're submitting test scores, I would look at their averages. And if you're well in their averages or above their averages, I would consider submitting your test scores. Again, some colleges still use those for scholarship consideration, even if the scores are optional. As far as North Carolina schools, as of this moment, they are not waiving test scores next year. They are required. That could change over the summer. You never know. So that's just something to sort of keep an eye on. We'll have another meeting for seniors in the fall where we'll definitely review that if there have been any updates. But as of this moment, test scores are still required for all the public North Carolina universities. So what to prepare for your applications? I mentioned resumes on the last slide. Resumes aren't something you usually have to submit to a college, though it can be an option. The main thing with resumes, or the other thing they're known as a high school brag sheet, the main thing for those is to give to your recommenders so that your recommenders are aware of everything you've been doing when they write your recommendation letter. Essays. Again, essays are super important. Common App, the essays are already available as far as the prompts. So this summer, I really, really recommend that you work on your Common App essay and get it as polished as possible. because a lot of the first deadlines for colleges are right as we start the school year, and having this essay done, or at least a good draft, will be really helpful. Teacher recommendations, there's not much to prepare at this moment, but you do want to sort of talk to teachers early on, make sure that they are able to do a recommendation for you. Some teachers do have to put some limits on how many that they can do. Counselor recommendations, again, we automatically do that for Common App. There's some other systems that ask for it too. We will ask for you to give us a copy of your resume, as well as to submit a senior questionnaire before we complete a recommendation. And the senior questionnaire we will post and send out through English classes in the fall. Transcripts, again, it's just a matter of requesting it. And Common App counselors upload the transcripts. Everything else, there's a transcript request link on the page website. ACT and SAT scores, we don't send the scores for you. You have to request them from ACT or SAT directly. For North Carolina public universities, the minimum ACT that's required is a 17. For the SAT, it's an 880. There is some flexibility with that depending on your GPA, but that's kind of the standard requirement, again, for public North Carolina schools. SAT subject tests, they're kind of phasing out. Most schools don't require them. There's a few schools that might look at them for placement purposes, so that's just something you want to check and see if they're looking for that. Scholarship supplemental forms. So there's a number of schools that have separate forms that you fill out to be considered for scholarships. So you'll want to check the financial aid website of the colleges you're interested to see if that's required. A big one is the CSS profile that's offered on the SAT website by College Board. I can tell you right off the bat that Chapel Hill will require that. And Appalachian has a merit scholarship form that you can't have access to until you've submitted an application to them. So those are just a few of the ones out there. The FAFSA, that's the free application for federal student aid, that's often required to be considered for scholarships and grants. So we highly encourage you submitting that once it's open October 1st. And there may again be some other financial aid forms that different colleges will ask you to fill out. So always pay attention to emails from colleges you're applying to. RDS, Residency Determination Service, that there's essentially, this is something that confirms that you are a resident of North Carolina so that you can get in-state tuition to any North Carolina schools you apply to. You do that through the CFNC website, the College Foundation of North Carolina. It's going to ask a lot of information about you and your parents, so you kind of need to sit down with them when you fill that out and save that number, because any of your North Carolina schools are going to ask for that in order to determine your eligibility for in-state tuition. And then fee waivers for ACT, SAT, and college applications. If you get free or reduced lunch or you have Medicaid, you can get your fees waived for 2 ACT tests, 2 SAT tests, and up to 8 college application fee waivers. So that's definitely something that you'll want to take advantage of if you qualify for. If you do qualify for that, just email your counselor. We are going to have a copy of either your free reduced lunch form or your Medicaid card in order to certify that. And please just do that sooner rather than later, because it can be a little bit of a process and we want to make sure that we meet your deadlines. So the main application systems you're probably going to see, Common App, that's a big one. More and more students use it every year because it includes colleges all across the U.S. Most of the North Carolina schools are on this, a lot of colleges from nearby states. So that's when there's a good chance you're going to be using. One of the things I recommend this summer is decide on what colleges you're applying to and check out what systems they offer, because especially if you have more than one college that offers Common App as an application system, you may just want to go ahead and plan on using Common App, because at least some of the information you'll only have to submit once to all the colleges. There's also a good number of North Carolina colleges that have applications in CFNC. Overall, the CFNC applications do require less writing, but then it sometimes means you'll have to submit extra supplemental documents within the individual college systems. Usually once you submit an application, you get a portal or account created with the college to track your application status. And there may be extra things that you have to submit in there. So that's just something to be aware of. CFNC is also where you apply to a college that's waiving its fee during college application week. So you may want to check out which schools are doing that and maybe save them for college application week and to apply to through CFNC. There's also a few schools on the Coalition app. It's kind of like Common App. Honestly, it's a little bit clunkier. But I would say especially you'll see some South Carolina schools on that. Virginia Tech used to be on it. I think they might not be staying with Coalition. I think they moved to Common App. But Coalition is another one that you'll see. And then there's also the Common Black College application where you can apply to any number of 53 HBCUs at one time for just a $35 fee. So those are the 4 systems that most of our students will be using when they apply to colleges. And I know you're probably like, how do I even know which ones? You can look at the college websites to see. You can also go to the individual application systems and see which colleges they have on there. But overall, yeah, if you go to the college website and you click apply as an undergraduate, they'll show you what options you have to apply to their school. SAT exam dates and deadlines, this is just for your reference. SAT hasn't announced a lot of their dates for next year yet. Well, they've announced the dates. They haven't announced necessarily the deadline to register. Typically, the deadline is a month before the test date. So you do kind of want to plan out when you're taking SAT tests since you do have to register so far in advance. And it can take, about a month for scores to get to colleges. So as you start thinking, okay, my college deadline is October 15th, I probably want to test before September. So that means I got to register. And, if you're taking the SAT, they don't even have a September test. They have an August test. So you'll probably want to register by July. So these are just things to think of. You can also take the ACT. Most of y'all took that this year as a junior. Most schools will take ACT or SAT. I actually don't know of any that doesn't accept both. So whatever test you feel strongest on, since a lot of y'all have now taken at least one of each, I would say take that a second time because most students, the second time they take the test, their score does go up. FAFSA, Say Yes, and financial aid. So I know funding college is definitely on everyone's mind as to how they pay for college. FAFSA is one of the big first things that you do. We mentioned that a few slides ago. It doesn't open until October 1st. If you want to apply for Say Yes scholarships, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you do need to fill out the FAFSA in order to be considered for that. It's going to be based on the 2020 tax year. So that is taxes that your parents would have submitted essentially right now, maybe a month ago. So it does refer to last year's tax year when it asks FAFSA questions. Both you and both student and parent have to have separate FAFSA accounts because the FAFSA is under the student's account, but the parent signs off on the FAFSA with their account. So make sure that y'all have like separate emails and everything attached to those. Otherwise, there can be some issues when it comes to finalizing the FAFSA. The Say Yes certification form, which is done to be considered for Say Yes scholarships, can be done anytime during senior year, but we recommend creating the account earlier in the year. And then once you know what college you're going to, you'll go back into your Say Yes portal and update it so they know where to send scholarship money. Say Yes, again, we'll talk about eligibility in a little bit, but it's for Guilford County students. You have to have been in high school at least since 9th grade, and it covers tuition only. And the many colleges have October 15th, November 1st, or December 1st deadlines for big scholarships. And I say that because yes, they have application deadlines, but colleges also tend to have internal scholarship deadlines in order for you to be considered for their big scholarships. And sometimes those are well advertised. Sometimes you have to dig a little to find out what those deadlines are. So I recommend trying to research and make sure that you get your application in earlier rather than later, because again, there's always more money being given out to the earlier applicants. If you're waiting till April to submit an application, or even just February, March, you've probably already missed out on some scholarships that you didn't even know about. So ideally, you want to get a lot of your applications in October, and then you'll probably make most of their internal scholarship deadlines. Oh, and I forgot to mention on the last slide, you can always appeal a financial aid package. So if you get, essentially after you've done the FAFSA, all your forms, March or April rolls around, you'll get a full letter breaking down how much it costs to attend the college and then how much they can offer you. And if you really can't afford the college, even with the scholarships and grants offered, you can appeal the financial aid package. Just please be aware with an appeal, it's often works best if there's some circumstance that maybe wasn't covered in the FAFSA that they didn't ask about, that you can go to the college and say, hey, this happened. Can y'all reconsider us as far as our financial aid package? Military and athletes. So we always have students, of course, interested in the military. There's a few different routes for that. We have some students who enlist, which if you want to know any contact information for local recruiters, Mr. Ebron can provide that. But also if you're looking at one of the service academies, West Point Naval Academy, Air Force Academy, those you have to get nominations and then you go through a whole process. Most of the applications for nominations are due by October 31st, but there are some earlier ones. If you're interested in a military academy, which means free college in return for military service, you really need to start doing your research now as a junior so that you make all the deadlines. So if you have questions about that, definitely feel free to ask your counselor. You could also look into, there's ROTC scholarships if you do ROTC in college that can help pay for college. So that's another military option out there. Once you turn 18, if you're a male, just remember you also have to register for the selective service to be eligible for federal financial aid. I sometimes have students ask, well, if I'm not planning to go to college or I don't need financial aid, do I have to do this? There's a few other government type things out there that if you haven't registered for the selective service, you won't be able to do. So just be aware that overall, yes, you are required to register for that. Athletes, if you plan to play sports in college, you do need to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. That's also kind of a way that you get recruited. There's some documents you'll have to upload through that. If you have questions, definitely talk to Mr. Ebron. You can also talk to your coach about that process.
Okay, so you guys are all juniors, but what can you start doing now? Well, the first thing that you can start doing is to develop your resume. You will have to, give these to the people you're writing recommendations for, or that are writing recommendations for you, excuse me, so that they can get all of that information about you. So go ahead and start developing that. Go ahead and start writing your Common App essay. You need to spend a lot of time on that. Edit it, proofread, all of the good things you've all learned in English class over the years. Go ahead and start asking teachers to give you recommendations for next year. The more heads up they have, the better your recommendation is going to be. They'll have more time to be thoughtful and really give you the best recommendation possible. Take the SAT with fee waivers. Again, if you have the fee waiver you need for Medicaid or free and reduced lunch, you will have to have documentation for that. This gives you access to at least 8 free college application waivers. So that saves you a ton of money. So you also should take the SAT or the ACT at least twice before August. Make a list of your deadlines. Make sure you have those mapped out so that you are good to go. You don't miss a deadline. And it says right here that a lot of colleges have October deadlines, so you definitely don't want to miss those. That's right at the start of the school year. Check out senior bulletins. We have them on the Page website. But they will have scholarship information that comes up at the beginning of the year. Athletes, make an account with the NCAA Clearinghouse so that you can be looked at by potential recruiters. Also, start visiting campuses. Get an idea of where you want to go and where you want to be. Some resources that can be helpful throughout this process. Obviously, the CFNC, the College Foundation of North Carolina. College Board is the SAT website. It's also a great college research tool. The ACT, the Occupational Outlook Handbook, that is my personal favorite. Peterson's college and scholarship information, our senior bulletins that we send out, the Page Counseling website under senior announcements, college visits. Those are going to be great for getting lots of information. And then we also have colleges that visit Page in the fall to give information. Say Yes to Education Guilford, which we will talk more in depth about shortly. FAFSA.gov, FastWeb Scholarship Resource, and of course, your counselor. So again, like I said, we are going to talk a little bit more into about Say Yes for Guilford. It is a wonderful resource for you guys to use, and I will let Ms. Sims give you some more information about that.
Good greetings, great day. Yes, Pirates. I am Miss Sims. I am one of the counselors here for the last names A through CO, and I am excited about sharing with you today on Say Yes information. Say Yes, I know that Ms. Huber had hinted on it previously in reference to some of the eligibility requirements, and she talked about how you must complete FAFSA in order to be eligible for Say Yes. That is a big one, guys. You must complete the FAFSA in order to receive Say Yes money. I know a lot of times students be like, well, Ms. Sims, you know, I don't think I can qualify for FAFSA. Well, you may not be able to qualify for FAFSA, but there's so much that you can do outside of that so you can get Say Yes money. So we can talk about that more in depth in just a minute. You also must graduate from a Guilford County school, high school, technically. You must be a Guilford County resident at the time of graduation. And then also the Say Yes application, it opens up October the 1st, and seniors have till June the 1st to make sure they complete the information needed for Say Yes Guilford, because there is a registration process. And then by June the 1st, seniors also have to indicate their school enrollment. So here are the Say Yes qualifications for like public universities. So high schools, and we'll go over that chart in a minute, but eligible graduates of Guilford County schools can receive scholarships toward their remaining tuition balance. That's after Pell, state, and institutional aid are applied at any North Carolina 4-year university or a 2-year institution. The amount of the tuition-only scholarship is dependent upon two different things: the student's family household income, and then the amount of time the student has been continuously enrolled in Guilford County schools, A tuition cap that is determined using the student's, of course, family household income or adjusted gross income is, of course, based on what you place on your FAFSA. There is a such thing as what they call like an opportunity grant. So sometimes students say, well, you know, all of my tuition has already been covered because I received, you know, a Pell Grant. This year, the maximum amount of Pell Grant funding was about $6,345, and had some students after that, they have no tuition balance left. So what they're eligible for is what they call like an opportunity grant. And that opportunity grant is like a $350 opportunity grant. And you're probably thinking $350, that ain't gonna get me a book, Miss Sims. But guess what? That'll get you something in these days and times. So an opportunity grant can be used to pay for expenses beyond tuition costs, like your dormitory rooms, books, or even meal plans. So that's something that the opportunity grant can be put toward. As you can see here in the chart, it lists out the different household income levels. So if the household income is 40,000 and under, and you must be enrolled by 9th grade in a GCS school, then of course that full tuition balance is paid after that Pell, state, and institutional aid. So I don't want you to forget about it has to be after that Pell, state, and institutional aid. If your income is from $40,001 to $75,000, then you must be enrolled by 6th grade, and that's up to $4,500 toward remaining tuition balance after Pell, state, and institutional aid again. And then if your income is between $75,001 to $100,000, you must be enrolled by 4th grade, and that's up to $2,250 toward remaining tuition balance after Pell, state, and institutional aid. And of course, if your income is above that $100,000 for the public schools, you will not be able, it doesn't matter, you won't be able to receive Say Yes Tuition Award at a North Carolina public institution, but we will talk about how that could change if you're at a private school or one of the compact schools that they're talking about. Excuse me. So now we're going to go on to private colleges and universities and talk about some of those that are in that what we call the Say Yes Compact. Eligible graduates continuously enrolled in a Guilford County school system or Guilford County school high school system since 9th grade has access to tuition and fee scholarships provided directly by the members of Say Yes National Higher Education Compact. Families with a household income under $75,000 per year, that's that adjusted gross income, will receive a full tuition and fee scholarship from any of the universities listed. Some of those universities, just to name a few, I won't go through all the list because I'd be going on and on for a while, but just to name a few that some of our students go to, we got High Point University, we got Harvard, we got Guilford College right down the road, we got Georgetown, we got Duke, we got Wake Forest, just to name a few of those schools that participate in the Say Yes. So if you say, for example, if your household income is $75,000 and under, and you must be continuously enrolled in GCS since 9th grade, your tuition and select fees will be covered by higher ed compact institution. And if your income is above the $75,000 and you must be continuously enrolled in GCS since 9th grade, you can get up to a $5,000 choice grant toward remaining tuition balance after Pell, state, and institutional aid is paid. Again, that's for anyone that's income is above that $75,000 mark. And of course, I want to just thank you guys for watching. And please, 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 if you have any questions, reach out to your respective counselor. The information is listed below. I won't go over their emails or anything with you because that is listed below. But again, thank you so much for watching. Go Pirates and dream big.